What's up everybody? Today we're going to take a look at the difference between a villain and an antagonist. Unfortunately, somewhere in the world, these terms are being used interchangeably in the same sentence to describe the same thing. So today we're going to put this puppy to rest. They are not the same! So, let's take a look at some villains.
Have you ever stood and stared at it, marveled at its beauty? Just peachy.
Bring me his head.
The Dark Lord Sauron.
I'll never see the light of another day.
So let's take a look at some antagonists.
I value my neck a lot more than $3,000.
I don't like hypothetical questions.
Well, I don't think you're gonna like the real one either.
Your genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen, but you wield it like a kid that's found his dad's gun.
Yeah, just keep drinking.
Jimmy, when's the last time they let a rookie lead an investigation? Oh, that's right. Never.
Just seems so unsanitary.
Just relax and enjoy it.
Junior?
On an interesting note, when doing the research for this episode, I found myself very easily able to come up with villains. Villains literally came to mind almost instantly. I knew who they were, what films they were in, what they did, lines they spoke, actions they had, and why they did them. However, when I tried to come up with antagonists, it was an entirely different process. It was actually quite difficult. They're less definable.
Kind of self-explanatory, ain't it?
Well, why don't you just explain it to me?
So what's the difference between a villain and an antagonist? Well, much of what we're taught when we make films and when we read film books and writing books is, well, they are pretty much the same thing, but I don't think that's true anymore. Generally, villains happen to be maybe a touch more two-dimensional. If you take a look at some of the examples that we showed earlier, you can certainly see why I might say that. But I do think that's an oversimplification of what they really stand for, and I do believe that they are actually two very different ideas, and they do actually represent two very different tool sets for a filmmaker. Although it's kind of not an oversimplification in some cases. Hashtags Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers.
What's with kids today, huh? No respect.
So let's define each one to better understand why they are. First of all, villains are generally designed around an absolute, or a fear that we all have. So they embody our greatest fears and anxieties, and this is an incredible way to embody how we can fight through life, to represent fighting through life for what we believe in. This is an incredibly cathartic way of sharing these stories because we get to see our hero battle with the audiences, our own deepest fears and anxieties, and triumph over them more often than not. A fantastic example of this would be Alien. Sigourney Weaver's character is essentially just a standard officer. There's no one on that ship who is a quote-unquote soldier. So unlike Unlike Aliens, where basically they have a whole bunch of highly trained Marines.
Come on, bastard!
Well, in the first film, there is no one who can actually take care of themselves. So when we get someone who more represents us, the audience, people who aren't combat hardened, going up against a predator, that is why Alien, the original Alien movie, is still seen as such a classic and still is a standout film in the horror genre. The Alien embodies our primal fear of the dark.
Jesus! Maybe they don't show up on infrared at all.
An antagonist, on the other hand, is quite often not really an absolute, or evil, or even seen as the bad guy in a film. In fact, an antagonist can be almost any character in a film or TV series, and they can be used to actually explore deep themes and morals within the film by challenging the protagonist in various ways. They don't have to have an all-out battle to do this. This is quite often seen in films where we watch a relationship where two lovers fight one another to see whose form of life and morals and ideals will win.
You're my boyfriend if you don't treat me like your wife.
I don't even know what that fucking means.
Or a teacher, or even a parent trying to teach their child a better way to live from their own perspective.
I'm almost 18, aren't I?
What is it? Going to big school making you nervous?
Each time we bring an antagonist into a scene, they don't have to be the bad guy. Instead, they are the opposite of the argument we're trying to convey to the audience. So in a way, an antagonist can be so much more to your story, and what's incredible is your audience never see them coming.
I don't believe it. You're meant to come down here and defend me against these characters, and the only one I've got on my side is the blood-sucking lawyer.
Thank you. A fantastic example of this is in the brilliant 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. We see later in the film where Peter Dinklage's character is talking with our lead protagonist, and he has held up a mirror to her life. He's shown her the error of her ways and how she is weak fundamentally. She's unable to connect with others in a truly deep way in favor of constantly trying to find justice for her daughter's murder.
I know I'm a dwarf who sells used cars and has a drinking problem, but who the hell are you, man? That billboard lady who never smiles.
She's forgetting to live herself, and in doing so hurting others around her. And this is the first time we see she actually is hurt by someone in this world. In fact, I think this attack is even more effective than when her ex-husband lunges at her with a knife.
Let her go!
Oh, I kind of needed to use the bathroom.
So what makes them different? Well, generally a villain is a very, very defined character that we can all rally against. We can all get behind our hero, our protagonist, to battle against that character because their morals and ideas are so vehemently against the normal morals and ideas of the audience. Which is also why I think Thanos' character in the latest Marvel movies was such a breath of fresh air, because he actually crossed that line between villain and antagonist in a really subtle way, without necessarily making us feel too sorry for him, but we also still understood why he did it.
What did it cost?
Now, don't get me wrong, obviously there can be really nice blends between antagonist and villain in many other movies, and, well, you can have a bad antagonist as well. You can have someone who is most definitely the bad guy in the film.
Equality, justice, education, poverty, and progress, they're second. If you don't win elections, it doesn't matter what's second.
But what makes them really similar in good films is when they've both been designed, no matter what type of movie, to attack our protagonist from their weak spot. Just like an antagonist generally does, a really great villain is able to attack from the weak spot, the blind spot on our protagonist.
Because you see, I do have a little leverage you might want to know about.
Meg!
Don't listen to her.
And that is what generally transcends a villain into the legendary status. The Hans Gruber, the Darth Vader. I can't really say Michael Myers, but even Jaws. Jaws literally is able to attack from the water. He embodies the fear of nature, and we are so powerless in the water compared to a shark. So by seeing our protagonist go on to defeat the shark at the end of the film, we really feel like, oh, thank God, there's a catharsis there. We can no longer be afraid of the sea.
I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chum some of this shit.
So when should you use a villain and when should you use an antagonist in your film? Well, I would argue it really depends on what you're trying to say with your film. If you don't really know what you're trying to say, but you know you want to make an action film, well, you probably have a relatively good idea, and let's not beat around the bush, it's gonna be a villain.
It's gone.
But let's just say you want to take your character, who happens to be a newspaper editor, through a situation where they actually have to release some incredibly sensitive documents in their newspaper, essentially risking their entire staff in doing so. Well, a fantastic antagonist for that character would then be the owner of that newspaper, someone who could lose everything and is external to the journalist profession. Someone, let's just say, like Meryl Streep in The Post.
Politicians and the press, they trusted each other so they could go to the same dinner party and drink cocktails and tell jokes while there was a war raging in Vietnam.
I don't know what we're talking about. I'm not protecting Linda.
No, you got his former Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara, the man who commissioned this study. He's one of about a dozen party guests out on your patio.
I'm not protecting any of them. I'm protecting the paper.
So it's incredibly valuable to choose whether you're going to use a villain or an antagonist to help tell your story.